Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are and wherever you're watching from. Welcome to the Visual Lounge. We're glad that you're here with us today, whether you're watching live or listening to the recording after the fact. We're happy to have you give us a little bit of your time, and hopefully we'll make it worthwhile today. So we've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to a favorite guest of mine, Andy Owen, who is from Techsmith. We'll introduce him in just a second. A couple of reminders as we get into the show. Just remember, we've got the Visual Lounge YouTube channel. Make sure you go out there and subscribe, because going forward here, pretty soon, I keep saying this, but pretty soon, all the shows are going to just be on the Visual Lounge channel. They will not continue to stream on the Techsmith channel. We'll try to make sure people are aware of that, get you over here to the right channel, but we want to make sure everyone makes that transition with us, because we are honored to have you as part of our subscriber base, and want to make sure we keep growing and getting the word out there about great things using visuals. So, again, just if you have anything you'd like to comment on, tell us what you like, don't like, make sure you can tag us at Techsmith anywhere on social media, or you can email us at thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. We'd love to hear from you. So with that said, let's get into today's show. Okay. So funny thing has happened. I lost all my notes because I don't know what happened, but we're going to introduce Andy. You guys might know Andy because we love him as part of the Techsmith family. He is now the social engagement and video manager here at Techsmith, so he spends a lot of his time on YouTube, whether he's talking to viewers in the comments or behind the curtain juicing up the reach of individual videos. He's spent over 20 years creating video content, and at least the last 5 of them here with us at Techsmith, which has been super awesome to have him part of that. And I just got to say, he is one of my favorite video creators and someone I love to have the opportunity to talk with whenever that is, whether on the show, but particularly not on the show too. So welcome to the Visual Lounge, Andy Owen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pierce. That was a very kind intro. I always love your intros. You always have the best things to say about people, and it just makes us all blush right before we come on camera.
I don't mean any of it. No,
They're
that's not true. I mean every single word of it. I love being able to have people on here, so it's great. Andy, we've got a great topic today. We're going to be talking about, you can look below us, it says stop reinventing the wheel. But before we get to that topic, a couple things. First of all, it's been a while since you've been on the show, and so instead of having people dig back into the archives, is there anything else that we should know about you before we get started?
Oh, goodness. It's one of those things. I'm terrible about talking about myself because I find everyone else so much more interesting. But no, I do. I've been making videos for 20 years. I owned my own business for 10 of those years. Enjoyed it very much. Was a stay-at-home dad during that time. But I really wanted to get back to just kind of making videos and working with a team and doing that and less of the business running side of things. So I've been really happy back at Techsmith, not back at Techsmith, but at Techsmith for the past almost 5 years. And it's been great working with you. It's a funny story, actually, and I think I've told you this before, but my wife, Chandra, who now also works at Techsmith, attended Camptasia, which was an in-person event that Techsmith did years ago. And I remember her coming back and saying, there's this guy there that I feel like you would really get along with. His name's Matt. And I think it's the funniest thing that years later we end up being, collaborators and friends and get to do this and work together full time. So every now and then I think back on that and we're just like, she was right on the money. I mean, she's always very smart, but she nailed that one. So.
Well, I'm glad that she did, and I'm glad that she's right. So today's show, Andy, though, we're going to get into some kind of practical things, but can we stay high level for a few minutes? And I don't know if philosophy is the right word, but as a video creator, I want to talk to you. Very first thing is you are responsible for making lots of videos. I know you had your own business for a long time. What influences you in the way that you make video? And I know this is super big and it's like, oh my gosh, that's a deep question, but I'm curious because I think I want to get some perspective. Like, where do you come at when you start thinking about making videos? Like, what's behind you? Were you like interested in making like Hollywood movies, or were you always kind of in the instructional video space, or what's influenced you to make the videos you make today?
Yeah, no, I wasn't in the instructional video space at all until really I got to Techsmith. I mean, I think in a way I was teaching people. One of my jobs, I worked for a school district, and I wasn't a teacher, but I taught the teachers and students kind of how to use, at the time I think it was Adobe Premiere, not even Pro, like 6.5, just to date myself. And so I would use the old version of Camtasia, in fact, to kind of capture my screen and show people how to do some basic edits. But most of my inspiration, I'm a child of the 80s, so Steven Spielberg and the like were kind of my inspirations to go into movie making and filmmaking. And somewhere along the way in college, decided it was really more video production or even radio broadcasting at the time, and television. I just kind of fell in love with that. I grew up with, my dad was a photography nut, and he loved the science behind darkroom development. And so I've kind of always had an interest in these things. But I think I remember going into filming weddings because I did that for 10 years with my own business and thinking this is going to bomb. I cannot do weddings. First of all, everyone always says, "Oh, dealing with bridezillas," and you can weed them out pretty easily. It's like any business. You kind of choose your customers as much as they choose you. And I had some great couples that I loved working with. For me, the problem was I wanted to be able to watch the video when I was done making it. Like, does this actually interest me? Is it worth doing? And the first year of doing weddings, I struggled with that because I wasn't making interesting videos. I was just making a video and giving it and being like, yeah, here's your wedding. I filmed it, and now here you go. You have a copy of it. And it wasn't until really maybe the first 8 months that someone said, if you're not interested in it, they probably aren't interested. Like, change it up, do something interesting. It's not just a home video anymore. You are a professional. Take control. And I did. And I remember the first time I ever made a wedding trailer, like it was a movie. And now those are pretty common. Everyone sees a little teaser or trailer of wedding, but at the time it wasn't that well known. I'd seen a few people do it. And the first time I did one of those, it just reinvigorated my love for, video creation and film editing. And I still gave them kind of the full length of their ceremony but it was that if I'm not even interested in watching this, then maybe the couple would be interested, but surely I can't get anyone else to give me, a second of their time to watch this trailer. And if you're at all owning your own business, you want people to pay attention to your work. Maybe you are making tutorials. If you can share them public facing, would anyone else want to watch it? Is it engaging at all? And sometimes I know there are limitations. It can't always be, a trailer or, but are you interested in watching it? Is it engaging to you? Do you find it enjoyable? And if not, that's a real challenge because you have to be able to watch it back. Someone has to be able to watch it back. So I think for me, the inspiration is, do I care? Now that I've made this thing, do I care enough to watch it?
Yeah. Well, I love that advice, and I love that could be applied to any of the types of videos that we might talk about on this channel and in this podcast, because it's got to be interesting at some level, right? I think sometimes we think we can just record something, and if it's just, I'm just going to talk like I'd normally talk, like, you still got to put something behind it. So I love that. When you're starting to approach videos, and we'll keep that having it be interesting to you in mind, what are the kind of, let's say you're going to a new project, what are the things that you're tending to think about? Like, as someone says, Andy, I need a video, or you're saying, I need to make a video. I know there's a lot of pieces that could go into it, but are the kind of high level things that we should be considering going to into the making of a video?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One is going to be, does it need to be a video? Is that the right source? Is that the right delivery method for it? Maybe it is, but a lot of times people just think, oh, I've got to make a video for this, right? Do you? Maybe it's a PDF. Maybe it's a graphic. Maybe it's, something else. Maybe it's a course. I don't know. And if it is a video that you need to make, who's the audience? And what do they care about? Back to, what do I care about? Like, do I care to watch this? Does your audience care to watch it? Do you know the demographics of the audience? Is it people who are, 25 and under? Is it people who are 50 and up? Is it somewhere in that mid-range? Like, all of these things feed into attention span and interests and tone of voice. Know your audience well enough to know what they're interested in. And I'm not saying box everyone in. There's a lot of, you could say stereotyping, but I'm not even trying to do that. It's really just understand your audience, understand what they care about. Maybe you can find more specific demographics. Like, am I talking to, X type of employees, or am I talking to, hobbyists of this hobby? How would they enjoy this video? So audience understanding is key. And then I think planning. A lot of people think that the major parts of the video are done, either in production or post-production, but we can't stress planning enough. We talk about it. I know you talk about it. We talked about it in the Techsmith Academy. Whether it's scripting or outlining or, I'm working on videos for YouTube that are channel trailers, and I want to make sure that I've actually storyboarded out my plan, because it's more than one person involved. So I want to make sure that everyone understands their role and how it's going to look in the final product, and that kind of will influence how I'm going to act on camera and how I'm going to talk to the camera. So everything so far, by the way, in everything I've just said, we haven't even started making the video yet, right? We're just talking about knowing your audience and planning the video. I haven't even gotten to making it. So I think there's a lot of research that can be done, or at least, knowledge of who you're going to be talking to, that comes first.
Yeah, well, I love that, because it does feel like a lot of video creation doesn't have, it's fun to be doing the recordings. It's fun to make, whether you like your voice or not, it's fun to do the audio at times.
Yeah.
Sometimes even fun when you get to add stuff into your editing. It's like, oh, cool, look what they made. But that's not it's work, but it's
right.
not maybe
it's good practice.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, even throwing in, 100 different transitions and just kind of playing with it and going live, sure, it's good practice. But if you start getting to the point where like this is my profession, or like I'm really trying to up my game, like then it's time to start adding these elements of like, okay, before I just do all of those things, what's my end goal?
I should probably start planning for this.
Eh.
I should up my
we,
game.
we we got together about 5 minutes ago. We're fine.
We're kidding.
Just kidding.
We're kidding. Anyone?
That's not true.
That's not true. So I want to go one more question, and then we'll start getting into actually how to pare down like all the extra work that you might need to do. But the question I have, because I think this is important for me, is you're someone who's been doing this for 20 years. You've got a long experience. I think a lot of us who are coming to this podcast, who maybe are using Techsmith products, they're brand new, and it's challenging to get into video creation because there's lots of moving pieces. It's working in a kind of linear, non-linear editor fashion where you're thinking in a different way. What about video creation do you still find challenging? Nothing. He's got it all down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, it's funny because you spend so much time doing, task X, right? Whether it's, animating something or even just the recording of the footage, or then you move on to doing the editing itself, that you kind of get bogged down in one thing that when you have to go back on a task you haven't done in a while, like I haven't worked in After Effects in a really long time. So if I tried to open up After Effects and, make a 3D layer, it's not really video anymore, but I'm trying to think of something that was challenging for me. I don't know, the portions that I'm probably most challenged with are reinventing the wheel. No, but really, like I think every time I have to kind of set the stage for a new show or a new series or anything that's going to be ongoing. If I'm just doing a one-off video, I can create a one-off video. But if I'm doing something that's going to have 12 episodes or is going to be a course, I want to find an established theme. I want to have an established set of colors or graphics. I want to know kind of the tone. And so again, I feel like a little more pressure with a longer series because once you're in, you don't want to change all the creative styling. And so I know that's kind of what we're talking about today too, is, don't reinvent the wheel constantly, do something and then reuse it. And it does help. But I think creating those, there's a little more pressure because what if you don't like it? What if I'm on episode 2 and I already am like, man, I regret this choice. I wish I'd done something different. It happens to me all the time. I would say we, the creators of this content, are going to look at anything we create way more critically than anyone else. We're going to be our own worst critics and our own worst enemy in some cases. And I'm just as guilty of that as anyone, where I'll look at, the pixels that my graphic is off by, and just it'll bother me to no end. I hear you laughing right now, Matt, because I know you suffer from the same sickness I do. But it's very frustrating when how close you were to being perfect. But you know what? You're never going to achieve perfect. I say to my son all the time, practice makes what? And he'll go, pretty good. And I'm like, that's right. Practice makes pretty good. Like, keep working at it and keep working at it. But perfect isn't the goal. Getting better is the goal.
Well, I'm actually quite the lover of mediocrity. Pixels off.
I don't believe that for a second.
You got to get things done. Sometimes you just got to get things done. But
Exactly.
I love what you're saying, because it is true, right? Like you get stuck in this, and I think, as someone who's creating a show, who's trying to be consistent and going week to week and creating stuff, we've obviously adjusted. Anyone that's been with us for the time can see even now we're rocking a different frame. We've tried some different things. Tried different segments, some work, some stuck, some haven't. But I love that, you gotta, but you don't want to recreate everything every single time either, because that gets to be a lot of work. So let's really dive into this reinventing the wheel. So Andy, we talked about this topic, but what is it that you think this topic is? Like, what should we go into? And I'll frame my questions from there. I've got some to ask, but I'm curious, when you say stop reinventing the wheel, what do you mean?
I mean, anything you can templatize, right? Make a template for your work. Not every time is this going to be the best use of your time, but I think so often we're spending a lot more time in the creation of lower thirds, title graphics, end cards, color for our frames, our screen recording content. Like, oh, I need to use this desktop background or this desktop background, or some people like to customize their cursors. Like, all these things that we really get into the minutia of that takes so much time. Make a template for it, use that, and then you can make your video a lot faster. And I think for me, I know today we have an example of like how to use a template in Camtasia. It makes it a lot easier. I even use templates in Finder. I work on a Mac. If you were using a C drive template, I'm talking about like a folder on your computer can be a template. And so I would even, Matt, I sent you, a copy of that. I don't know if you have it accessible or not, but basically I have a set of folders, and we've talked about it before on this show, and I've made a YouTube video about it on our channel. The idea being you have one main folder on your computer that you call, project template. And then from there, you basically build out your subfolders. And I do this every time. So there's over on the right-hand side, you can see he's got 00 projects. This is my template folder. In fact, I name my template folder Z underscore, you can see at the top, Z underscore templates, because now I know where it's going to be found every time. It's at the bottom of my folder. And so I also have, sometimes I'll do A underscore if I want like my brand guidelines up top, but Z underscore templates. And then the projects, right now it's empty, but that would be where I keep my Camtasia project or Premiere or After Effects or whatever you use. The footage folder for a YouTube series, I'll do like episode 1, episode 2, and keep all of the raw footage in there. The audio, whether it's music or narration files, you can separate those into sub audio folders. Images can be thumbnails. It can be graphics that you need to put inside of your video. Documents are usually, I use that for scripts. Sometimes I'll use that for image releases if we're doing interviews with guests. And then exports, and that's where I put my final video. In fact, I'll put a bunch of drafts first, and then the approved one, and I'll usually delete drafts to save some hard drive space. But every time I do a project, it's based on this, and I copy that Z template and I rename it to what I need it, and then I start populating that folder. It saves me a ton of time when I'm going and looking for footage on an old project, because I know I've put it in that 01 footage folder every time. There's no guesswork. There's no, which one ends in MP4? Like, that's footage. Nope. I know right where I put my footage, because it's the fastest way to get lost in a project is to not know where anything is saved, or to save something as untitled. How many people have things labeled untitled on their computer right now? So being able to organize it.
It's called download, actually.
Everything in my project folder should hopefully have a name and hopefully have an organized place that I'm going to find it. And that saves me so much time already. And that's not even in the video project yet.
So Andy, before we go down, because I want to get to some of these we'll call them physical. I know they're digital, but we'll call them kind of physical components. I wanted to ask you real quick about things that like scripts, intros, outro, and I'm not talking about the things that are on screen, but like things that you say or set up. How valuable is it to kind of pre-create some of those? And I know it doesn't always work, but for instance, let's take an example here. At the beginning of the show, I know I'm going to say something like good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know at the end of the show, I'm going to say something about leveling up. If you're new to the show, spoiler alert. If not, you've heard it 1,000 times. But and you're making videos, does that make sense to do that? I mean, I'm doing it because it's a live show. It's weekly. I need an intro. It seemed like the best, like literally just came to me one day. I don't know that it's great, but like how do you figure out when you should use those things as well as kind of these physical pieces that you're going to kind of always reuse?
See, I'm glad you brought that up. We didn't even talk about this in advance. And that's one thing that I totally forgot is scripting templates are huge. And we've got one, we can find a download for it because I know we've got it on a couple of our videos on YouTube already. But creating a script template, again, the template is just your starting blocks. Like from there, you can kind of expound as much as you need to, break the template apart, but it gives you the guide. And I think the beginning of your video is critical, because how many people want to build out a bunch of fluff right at the beginning? Like, hi, I'm Andy. I've spent 20 years in video production. And one of the things I can tell you about video production is how good I am at video production. In video production, what I can do, no one cares. Like, no one cares. Get into the subject of your video right away. Matt says, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. And like, you're into the video. Right then, he's going to introduce the topic. If you can cut down on the amount of fluff. In fact, we had this conversation. My team met earlier today, and we were going over scripts. And this script template is one that we've used for a couple years now. And so it's, always, in this video, I'm going to talk about X, Y, and Z. Hi, I'm Andy from Techsmith, where we help you show what you know. And then we go into the topic. And they all kind of said, no one cares that you're Andy from Techsmith. We have it on a title. Like, just put the title up. It was an interesting pushback from my team today. And this just happened this morning, where it was like, can we just dive into the topic? Like, would that be better for our audience? Because if they just find the video and they don't even know who Techsmith is, they just are looking to get better at video. And you spend all this time saying, hi, I'm Andy from Techsmith. Even that little time, you don't have, for long. So we broke it down to just the intro to this video. We're not even going to introduce me or who Techsmith is. It's today we're going to help you learn X, Y, and Z. So step one is, and we go right into it. Now that may not be the right solution for tutorials and for a whole lot of content, but for us on YouTube, we wanted to catch people and get them right into the content. So we're cutting out as much fluff as we can. And I think that's critical. The same thing for the outro. I would say, if you want to have a call to action, in fact, sometimes we've bumped our call to action a little sooner because you want people to watch the whole video. But I mean, let's be real. People don't always watch the whole video. So if you have an important call to action, make sure you download this or make sure you subscribe to that. Put it kind of earlier in your video, maybe in the first quarter of your video, so they know what you want them to do. And then go through the video, and maybe at the end you can have that call to action again. But I think templatizing your script so that you have that framework of how to speak to your audience. You've done your research on who your audience is and what they're looking for and the topics they care about. And if we're only doing a video about one topic, because we've talked about this before too, most videos suffer from too many topics. If we only have one topic to talk about today, then I can make multiple videos. But do I really want to start from scratch every time? Or can we take this template and build 6 or 7 videos in just a little extra time? It's not even going to take that much more effort if we already have a template for the folder structure, for the script, for the video editing itself. It's going to save you so much time.
Yeah. So let's do this real quick. If you're listening to the podcast, watching the show, leave us a comment. Should I shorten up the intro to this show? Or do you like the intro? Let's put it out. Let's see. And if we'll hear from a few people, and then we'll make adjustments as called for. Let's go ahead and leave it in the YouTube comment if you're watching YouTube. Leave it in the live chat. Leave it on the email us at thevisuallounge@techsmith.com. So
yeah.
I love that advice, Andy. I love that you're doing that, and I love that we can always get better. And obviously, you got to know your audience. Like, I think the intro is often determined by your audience. It's often determined by what your goals are. Why maybe no one on YouTube cares who Andy from Techsmith is. I understand that. I know also sometimes in internal videos or other videos you might need to share who somebody is, right? Absolutely. I am so-and-so. I'm an expert on X, Y, and Z. So just because Andy said, what I don't want people walking away with is do what Andy said. It's more like make it right for your audience and your purpose. And I think that's really important.
Hopefully that was the clearer takeaway earlier, right? Is like, you've got to know your audience. Like, everything comes down to who is your audience. So if my audience is on YouTube, then they're not here for me. They're just surfing through YouTube. But if they've come to the Techsmith Academy and they want to learn from Matt Pierce, then yes, of course they want to see Matt's face. They want to know who he is and learn from him because he's got credentials, that they want to learn from. So I think it does matter, again, like you said. So that is very important. Don't just say, oh, well, Andy said don't introduce yourself. No, the right audience needs to know who you are.
Yeah. So I wanted to share some comments because we love our audience here in the live. And Garth is saying, since I started using a consistent project folder structure, I've saved a lot of time. So Garth, way to go. That's awesome. And he has a question that I want to get to that I think is literally the next question, similar enough to my next question that we'll just ask Garth's version of it. He says, how do you balance consistency and creativity? Because I think I feel this, right? Like, man, I like making videos, but I like being creative. I want to do stuff. I want it to be exciting and new. And all of a sudden you're telling me to say the same things at the beginning, use the same art kind of in it, same lower thirds, like same music or whatever. All of a sudden it feels like, oh gosh, that's going to get boring quick. Video 5 is going to be a stinker because I have to work on the same doing the same thing. So for you, Andy, how do you balance that creativity and the consistency so you're feeling like you're getting the creative outlet, you're feeling energized by it, you're liking what, you're creating it for you, you like it as well, but you're not burning yourself by just being way inconsistent.
Right. I find that changing my shirt for each video. No, I'm just kidding. I think this is a good question because this is something that I struggled against for a long time because people would tell me, oh, you're working off a template, right? Because you're not recreating this every time. Oh no, it's more creative to recreate every time. Yes and no. If you're making art, recreate every time because art is art. I'm making tutorials or teaching elements, and I have art in them. We have elements that we want to kind of catch the eye and be appealing to look at. But at the same time, it's not about the art; it's about the lesson. It's about the tutorial. So really, I'm going to build my creative piece, one time. And then the creative piece comes in the content that we're presenting, right? So it's either screen recording or it's live camera, conversing, whether it's scripted or off the cuff. I think there's still room for creativity in the actual lesson that you build. And in fact, it frees your time to be more creative in the lesson building. So whether it's screen recording or, one of the things that we don't talk about very much, but we have to create what we call internally Acme content. Sometimes we don't want to show a real website or our own internal content because that would look confusing for our audience. So, sometimes we'll build fake websites. Sometimes doing those kind of fake Acme contents, that's a creative outlet. And we'll build it and then use it for a while. And then we move on to something else and build it and create it for a while. So again, we're using kind of this creative outlet and then templatizing it for a while and then moving on to another one when we get tired of using the same one over and over. But there's all sorts of different ways to kind of bring about your creativity. And I'm not a writer. I don't find that writing is a creative outlet for me. So when I say like, oh, but then the content is your creative outlet, not for me, not always. But the edit is cutting out kind of the chaff, cutting the busy parts of the like fluffy parts of the video out. Sometimes we'll script in things that even after you're done scripting, you think you've perfected it, but you read it in the studio or to your camera. And as you watch it back, you're like, man, get to the point. Like, I need to cut this out. So there's still room for creative editing. There's still room for kind of changing and, versioning as you go forward. So I know that doesn't fully answer like how you get creative, but for me, the time I spent being creative ended up being a lot of wasted time sometimes because I'm not also a fast content creator when it comes to like new graphics and new color styles and new, panels. I enjoyed doing it, but it was slowing down my process. And so being able to kind of implement a set of graphics for these next 6 videos or 12 videos saved me a ton of time, and then change it for the next videos. For us at Techsmith, when we're doing content, we have Techsmith brand and we have Camtasia and we have Snagit and we have Audiate. So we can kind of break up some of our stuff with these different color styles that each brand brings. So there's variety in that too. It's not always about the content. Maybe it's about the color scheme or about the tone of voice that you bring. But there's usually room for bringing creativity back in other areas. And honestly, if this isn't what saves you time, templatize something else. So we talked about templatizing the script. Maybe like me, you're not a writer. You don't want to write. If you use a template for your script, that has now saved you time and you can create other graphics for each video. Like maybe that is something you thrive on. Well, don't templatize the graphics. Templatize the script, templatize the prep work and the folder structure, but leave something for your creative mind to kind of still build on.
Yeah. So, I love that you're thinking about this modularly, right? It's not just one thing. You can, whatever you feel like you can templatize. I'm guessing YouTube's probably easier, but maybe if you have an internal audience, this works as well. Like, your audience, like maybe you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what the message is. It's like, they need to understand this and you're just bringing it in. And so maybe that's a lot easier. I do want to share another comment from our audience, Andy, because I think it resonates with what you're saying. It's Will over on LinkedIn says, I love this. Thank you, Andy. Automate what can be automated, templatize things, and that frees you up to be creative in areas where creativity can be most impactful. And I think that's right. And I know next week our guest is Christy Kodovan. He's going to be on, and he's a Camtasia. He makes awesome videos about Camtasia, really creative things you can do in Camtasia. And just a spoiler here, one of the things I think we'll end up talking about is the constraints that you have really empower creativity, right? And I think that's true with what you're saying, is that when we have these constraints, whether it's whatever template it might be, it really forces us to be like, okay, how do I get the most out of the thing that I do have to, like, I do have to worry about brand colors. Yeah. I do have to worry about certain other aspects that maybe Techsmith or whatever company I'm with deems as valuable and important. So I think it's one of those things like, yes, templatizing can feel restricting, but if you lean into it with the kind of the mindset like, okay, what can I do in spite of my templates, work within these creative restraints? I think that's when often I'm not an artist, but oftentimes people are more creative because you have something to push up against versus you're just kind of free floating, like whatever you want to do. I've never made a good video that was just whatever you want to do.
Yeah, just make it up. It's fine. No, well, I think that the other thing I didn't even mention yet is like, if we maybe we're talking about transitions too. So you've got your template everywhere else, and you decide, you know what, I want to change the transition. I want to use a totally different transition. At Techsmith, if anyone knows our Techsmith logo, it's a square made up of 3 triangles. So maybe I'm going to use one that has kind of a heavy feature on squares that kind of fly into the scene, or triangles that cut across. Like, it's not our logo, but I can kind of play with the elements of our logo that still feel like a brand, but it gives me something to be creative with that, I wasn't necessarily thinking of. So there's different ways of kind of incorporating creativity. And as I always say, anytime I talk about transitions, and when you pick a transition, kind of stick with it and bring that continuity throughout your video. So yeah, there's all sorts of different ways that you can kind of customize how you're creative. I like the way you called it modular. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're right. Like, there's elements that you can bring in of a template or an automation that then you still do the part that brings you joy creatively.
Yeah. So Andy, we're getting, we've got a little bit of time left, but I want to get into some of the kind of the realities of what this might look like in a video editor.
Yeah.
We've talked. I think we shared the script template so people can get that. We've got some of these other things we can drop links for. But should we go over to Camtasia and you can walk us through now let's preface this. What are we going to see here?
So this is actually what my team uses to create our YouTube videos on the Techsmith YouTube channel. And so when we work, now we do a mixture of Premiere and Camtasia, though we do the majority of our work in Camtasia. We do a template so that every time, my interns work on this, as well as our other full-time editor, Katie. Hi, Katie. I know she's watching.
Hi, Katie.
And so when we work on these things, bringing continuity across is important. I don't want someone to say, oh, clearly today Noah edited that video, or Josiah edited that video, or Katie edited that video. Like, it should very much feel like Techsmith's video. And if I wasn't here anymore and they put someone else in, it still has that same look and feel no matter what. So that's why we use the template for our team. And you can see right here, this is actually the one we use. So if you've seen any of our videos, some of these elements might look familiar. The bottom track is an audio track, and that is simply the song that we would have start the video out, during the intro, and then a little bit under the intro title card, and then it kind of fades out usually, or fades very quiet. The cool thing about the template is if we save it with the audio points, you can see a little bit that at the beginning there, those spiked audio points, or not spiked, but raised up. And that would go into the title card. No one's talking, so the music can get a little louder. You can actually save the audio points as part of the template. So you can really save kind of every bit of the edit. Above that on track 2 is a placeholder, which is what the kind of bluish greenish gradient is on the canvas. And that literally is just a drag and drop area where I can put my footage. And once we put the footage in, then you can kind of go through and chop up any pieces you need. And then on track 3 is kind of where we have all the graphic elements. And so if you hover over the first one there.
Andy, real quick, yeah. I just want to point out something that's probably a little hard to notice on screen, and I'm going to pull this out here, but you've gone through and named these. So it should be very clear to anyone who opens a template like this. This is what goes there.
Yep. So there's the video track. I can't quite read them here, but I think it should say video, audio.
It's screen recording. You got footage, you got music, and then track 4 above.
Yep, exactly. And that's another part of templatizing. That's another part of kind of automating and making sure that everyone gets on the same page, whether I'm sitting over their shoulder or not. They've got, all the stuff they need to be successful. And so for this first part of the template, actually, this is kind of our general title card, right? So we've got the text, we've got 3 cards. Actually, it's a yellow card, a white card, and a gray card. And the cool thing about this is if you double click into that group, so this is just a group that Katie actually built in Camtasia here. You can see it's just shapes. So if you were to highlight, the yellow track at the very bottom and just select that one, you'll see on screen, it's just an angle of, I believe, like a square or a rectangle. And so all we did was took a big shape and slid it in, and it makes this kind of nice title card. And so then she slid in a white one and a gray one. And it looks like this cool angled module. It was super easy to build in Camtasia. It's just shapes and then a text layer on top.
Hey, Andy, before we go any further, I want to do something. Can we just play this back so people can get a sense of what it looks like? So here we go. Got our music.
And there's my lower third.
And then it's going to skip ahead a little bit, and I don't know what these are. So, oh, look at that.
Hard to say. This is where we say, make sure to subscribe to this channel and click the bell to be notified when we release more great content.
So, okay. So I love it, and I think that gives some context to like what we're seeing here in the group, right? Like of kind of the different pieces as that comes in. So you just said something that makes me ask a question here in this process. You obviously have a couple things that are phrases. What was about subscribe that you just said?
Make sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified when we release more great content.
And you probably say that in almost every script.
Well, I sure do.
So do you ever think about and tell me if yes or no or why not? Do you ever just record that and say like that's the one? Obviously, it'd be shirts might be a problem, but
What do you mean? Do
like
I
a
record it and
different
say
shirt
that's
if you're wearing if it's like just a pre-recorded piece that you could just
yeah, if I wasn't on camera, I would reuse that all the time. If it was a screen recording at that time, there is no reason I would ever re-record that. I would do it once and just put it back in. Again, saving myself the effort of, hey, it's a template now. I would also say, like, every now and then I think, gosh, there's got to be a less boring way of saying it because, it's YouTube. Everyone's heard subscribe to my channel, click the bell to be notified. Like, these are kind of standards. And I feel like, every kid on TikTok or every YouTuber is just like, subscribe, make sure to click that bell, smash the like button. But there has to be a call to action. And that's what it is. It's a call to action. I want you to do something. To be able to release more content for more people to appreciate and get in front of more, people's eyes that we can help with this content, I need the subscription and the like for the algorithm to say, yep, this is good content. Let's feed it to more people. So there are important reasons that we do calls to action. But yeah, it's a template and I've memorized it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why we ask people to subscribe to the new channel, right?
Make sure you do subscribe to the Visual Lounge channel. If you haven't subscribed, head over to YouTube, get to the Visual Lounge, subscribe to the channel, please. Because it is just the best way to get this content in front of the right audience. I think it's super important.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've got a couple things here. Are you like music is one that I feel like, gosh, I don't want to use the same music over and over. Are you using the same music every video?
So that's a great question. We use the same music for the same series, but currently we have 2 series going. So it's myself talking about video and kind of Camtasia topics, and then Aaron from Techsmith is talking about Snagit and kind of those communication tools. And so for her, we're using a different song than we use for me. Just like for your show, you've got a specific song that you use, and so it's one of those things that we want to change it when it feels dated or old or dry, when it just kind of feels like, oh, okay, this is not working and we've heard it and it actually irritates people, then it's time to change the song. But if people recognize it and there's that kind of comfort to it, then it's a good one to keep and hang on to. And for us, we've played around with, whether the song, because I know this is kind of a hot topic in learning and development, whether the music should or should not be on, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the results say that like music throughout the video is bad, but like it's okay to bring it in like during the introduction.
And that's generally kind of the general rule. There's exceptions, and you can
as
get
with
around
anything,
it,
right?
but generally.
And I think with ours, we tried that because one of our videos was like 5 to 8 minutes long, and it was a little bit longer than most of our content. And so you start looping the song, and then it really starts to grate on your nerves, not only as the video editor, but as the viewer. And again, so this is my kind of litmus test. If it's bothering me as the editor, it's gonna bother my audience. Like that's just trust your gut on that. If it's boring or annoying, it's definitely gonna bug them too.
Can I add a thought to that? Because something I realized early on in my time at Techsmith, I found this out the hard way. I'll say that is music. I had an intro and I was just templatizing pre-templates in like things like Camtasia, but I was using the same music clip and I was just take it from one project to the next. And the videos were super short. They're like a minute long, and it was meant to be watched in a series. Like you could literally, people were going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it was the same music every minute or two because they were watching a minute.
Sure.
And I got some really clear feedback, very clear feedback that was super like, why are you playing that song again? And it was nothing I had thought of because I wasn't watching them in a series. I was just going to say
that's an experience that the viewer is going to have that you as the editor wouldn't have. So that's interesting because that's not normally the case, but you're right. This is another reason you have to think of your audience, the experience the audience is going to have. That's super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so, Andy, let's look at Camtasia again. So you've got these intros, you've got this stuff. What else could we templatize here? I know Christy was mentioning that he uses stuff from the library to make it easy. We can obviously use templates, but what can I repeat here? How can I make my videos faster, easier, more scalable?
So I don't actually have it on this one, but oftentimes if we're doing a picture in picture, right? So the person on screen, kind of like what we've got right now, actually, this is a bit of a picture in picture where we're showing something next to us, but we're also on the screen and you've got us placed in squares. Well, maybe you want to do a circle. Or you want to do, a triangle or some custom shape. You can do that with the Media Mats visual effect that Camtasia has. And without getting into all the details of how it works, I would just say that's something you can templatize. You can throw a shape onto your track, you can throw a media mat on top of it, and then each time you do a new video, just drag your talking head footage onto that track and put it into your shape. Like if Matt wanted to use the call out symbol that the Visual Lounge has, as part of its logo, bam, you've got it every time ready to go. You don't have to, go find where did I save the logo on my hard drive, bring it in. Nope, it's part of the templates right there waiting for you. This is something we do with logos all the time. Like we save logos in a standard place. We have the I was going to say Instagram, but all social media icons kind of on this template because there used to be an end card on the template where it was like, make sure to follow us on these social media channels. Well, we found the end card was a problem. So this is the other thing about templates. They're modular, they're changeable, they're editable. You can grow with your template. So we were having a 20-second end card because that's how long YouTube will allow you to leave an end card. There it is. We don't use that anymore. I love that end card. I think it's beautiful. We'd put videos on the side in the yellow there so you could choose which one to watch next. But the problem we realized is, and Matt, you and I have talked about this a bunch before, kind of that indicator of when the video is done, when I would start to say, and there you have it. Now you know how to do X, Y, and Z. Once I said that, people were done listening. They'd checked out. They knew they'd gotten everything they came for. So now that's where the end card comes up. And I don't even bring the graphic anymore because I'm probably going to talk for another 20 seconds about, and that's how you do X, Y, and Z. So I hope you learned something. Leave us, a note in the comments for what you're going to do with this trick. And be sure to follow us, or be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified. I kind of wrap it up on the end as well. By the time I get through that, no one's sticking around for the graphic end cards. So it was important for us to kind of bring those end cards up over the footage of me speaking so that people knew, yep, it is done. Click the next video to stay in our funnel, or maybe they were done. Maybe they've gotten what they came for and they're all set. But either way, it's that, kind of psychological indicator that this is over.
Yeah, I think a couple other things I want to make sure we mention, and we'll get to our speed round here in just a minute or two, Andy, because gosh, times go so quick. Things like, I want to make sure we talk about real quick. So things that I think also could be on hand, ready to go, maybe not a template, but ready. Colors, brand colors. Mm-hmm. In case you need to do something that's not in your template. Fonts, yes, I feel like are a good one because
huge. Yep. I'm glad you bring up fonts. This is an important topic too that we learned. With a new intern who's joined our team, if they haven't downloaded our font pack that we use and we send them our template, then Camtasia, like most software on your desktop, only can use whatever fonts you have on your computer. So the first review from a new intern we get, and we realized they used a different font, but we sent them the template with the. Oh, okay. This was also a key indicator. Like, hey, you need to make sure to download all of our brand packs and all of our, things that maybe didn't come on the computer. Usually they do. So things like that can get kind of a momentary, where'd the font go? Like that was part of the template, but it's as simple as just saying, oh, here it is. Go ahead and install it on your computer, and bam, it fixes it. So fonts is an interesting one that we found is more of a computer issue than a Camtasia issue, but you just have to make sure you've got everything that you need.
Yeah. So, okay, what else do we need to make sure we have on hand? I find, and I think the library is a really good place to store these things, logos. Being aware of, and this is maybe less of a template thing, but be aware of the right padding around things. Because I know I worked for a large multinational firm, and they had very specific information about how much space needed to be around that logo, what colors that logo could be on. So just your brand guidelines in general can be super helpful.
Yeah.
What else am I missing? What should we have on hand kind of as our last thing here?
Gosh, I feel like you're naming all of them. I mean, the song we already mentioned. In fact, the funny thing about the song too is even if you change the song, Matt, I don't know if you still have Camtasia up. If you do, we can show it in here as well. But in the template, if you right click on the song that's in the timeline, I could now I think it's convert to placeholder. So we might not be able to read it on this size, but if it says convert to placeholder, now the song is gone, but it held those keyframes that we added, those volume points. So if we put the volume points at the beginning in a specific place to come up and get louder under that title card and then get quieter when our speaker comes back on, I can put in any song I want and it'll retain those volume points. And I think that's a super helpful thing. If, we've decided we really don't like the song, let's swap it out. It still retains that information. So. And again, sometimes I move those points if my intro is a little bit longer or a little bit shorter. But either way, it's there, and it's a good reminder that you do need to get a little louder under the title card.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give.
But as far as
go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as other assets, you mentioned all the ones I can think of. Honestly, it's logo packs, it's colors, fonts, just kind of all those assets, music, video footage. If you have, I can't think of other ones, but those are the major ones. As my camera goes fuzzy here, so
Yeah, I think
I'm looking a little blurry on my own preview.
I'm gonna shut down. I've got too many things open going on here, but I think Andy, thank you
You're
for
good.
sharing these. I think the thing is, for our guests or for our audience listening, anything that you can pre-prepare that you're going to use more than once is probably worth grabbing. I think it's just putting it together in these packages makes it easier, so you don't have to rethink about it. And I think that's the other thing. Some of the decision fatigue that can happen in video editing is real. As you're making cut. What do I do?
Yes.
Some of that stuff you can't get away from, but some of it's like, oh, good. I don't have to think about what an intro should look like. And then, I think good experimentation says you always, once in a while, you try something different. Like I'm hearing in the chat, next week we should try something a little different. Maybe get to the content a little faster. So Christy, be ready next week.
Okay.
Okay, Andy.
Lightning rounds up front now.
That's right. Are you ready? Because we're going to go into our speed round.
I'm ready.
All right, for anyone who's listening who isn't familiar with speed round, these are fast questions, hopefully faster answers, and give a chance to have a little bit of fun with our guests. Some are usually, there's at least one on topic. There's usually some that are a little bit to get to know the guest even a little bit more as we wrap up the show today. Okay, Andy, like we said at the top of the show, we've known each other for a while now. But since we're not reinventing the wheel today, what's the best place you've ridden your one wheel? So for those who don't know what a one wheel is, you'll have to describe it real quickly. But
yeah. I hope I'm not too much on a delay here. My internet's messing with me. But on a one wheel, my favorite place to ride was actually to work. I used to live 2 miles from the office, and I would ride my one wheel. And I didn't explain what it is. A one wheel is basically a skateboard with one giant wheel in the middle that is self-balancing, kind of like a Segway or, like a Segway. And the idea is it can go up to somewhere between 16 and 25 miles an hour, depending on the kind you have. And you lean forward to go fast, you lean back to stop. It's very scary at high speeds, but it's wonderful. And it's got a big go-kart wheel in the middle. And I used to ride it to work every day, and I loved riding it to work. I lived closer then. I've moved farther away since, so I don't anymore. But that was my favorite route, was riding it in the morning to work and riding it home in the afternoon, especially on nice weather days. It was nice and relaxing.
So, okay, hopefully the delay doesn't get us. You're coming back a little clearer. So what's one tip you have for video creators that you never get to share but want everyone to know? So something that you don't, like, we have lots of tips, lots of things we've talked about over and over, but what's something you don't get to share very often that you wish you could share?
Oh man, I feel like I'm such an open book. I try not to keep anything to myself. Oh, what would I share? Okay, here's what I would share. And this may be a little too technical, but our YouTube videos, we shoot them in 4K, but we always produce our videos in 1080p. So if you're familiar at all with, again, I'll try and keep the technical a little out, but if you're familiar at all with 4K, it's much larger resolution than 1080p, double basically. But that means that when I'm producing a video, the quality is huge, and I can zoom in on my footage. So I could crop down to almost just my face in the shot and still not have zoomed in past kind of 100% of my quality. And I know this is kind of a confusing way of explaining it, but when we produce our videos, it's in a HD format, 1920 by 1080, but doing it in 4K, filming it in 4K, and then producing it that small means we can kind of zoom in and zoom out and never zoom over 100%. So if you film at a smaller resolution and stretch it, it's going to get pixelated and blurry. So we film at a larger resolution and shrink it. And then we can kind of zoom in and zoom out. And it gives us a little more bandwidth without compressing our image. And so that's one tip that, often I don't share it just because it gets confusing when I try to explain it. But that's one that I think has helped us. If you watch our YouTube videos, you'll notice there's one camera in a lot of them. And that was kind of a result of the pandemic. But there's one camera, and I kind of would just zoom in and zoom out on 2 shots because I can just do it that way.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You know the next 2 questions because I know you've seen the show, but where do you turn for inspiration?
Oof. Other YouTube videos, actually, right now, it changes from time to time, but I've been watching a lot more YouTube even than I used to. And, I've been watching probably since Casey Neistat was, quite before he started his daily vlog. For those who don't know, he was a vlogger. He's still around, but doesn't do as much. But he used to do Nike commercials and big brand commercials with just him and like a handy cam. He would travel the world and kind of blow the budget on travel and doing these fun, creative videos. And it was just super inspiring to watch how he would kind of reinvent advertising by living it. Like if we say just do it and just go on an adventure, he would take the money he was supposed to spend on a big budget commercial and go on an adventure and kind of film it with a handheld camcorder. That was super inspiring. Not necessarily something I'm going to do, but watching how he would use creativity in place of a big budget of a camera crew and a light set and a studio, and so I think that kind of guerrilla filmmaking is always inspiring to me to watch. And so there's a lot of YouTubers doing a lot of really creative things. I know Katie, who we work with, loves full-time filmmaker. They do a lot of really great filmmaking courses for people who want to get into it full time. I feel like I just made that one really obvious. But there are a lot of really, really creative YouTubers and creators out there. And so it's just fun to kind of surf and see what other people are doing.
Yeah. We're going to go to our next question. Then there's one or two questions or comments from the audience I want to make sure we go through. But our last question in the speed round is always, what question do you have for me? And I'm a little scared because you've probably had a chance to think about it.
Gosh, I haven't, because I'm very selfish and I mostly thought about what I was going to answer. So I think I want to know what's your favorite video you've made while at Techsmith? Like which one stands out to you as like, man, I'm just never going to not be proud of that.
That's a great question. I mean, I think some of the things I'm most proud of, no one will ever see. They're old. I really am proud of.
We can make sure of it.
Well, I'm very proud of the Forge, which was back in 2011, I think it was. We started a live streaming show, which it's obviously over time we stopped it and it transitioned and it made this show possible. But I feel like we were doing stuff at the time that was really interesting in terms of the technology wasn't there, the platforms weren't there, we didn't have YouTube like we have it now. But there's one that I had a part in terms of like kind of behind the scenes that I think was pretty fun. It's Survive Another Day with Camtasia, and it's about like the green screen. It was just a fun kind of execution. It's kind of based on the TV show 24, and there's like there's running and down a railroad track. There's like dry ice, so some special effects, and it got lots and lots of attention, but it failed because of the end cue that you talked about. Like,
yes,
applaud when people applaud in a video. Guess what? That usually means kind of an end, and people stopped watching, so they didn't get the message. So it failed, but it was super fun to be part of it. I'm proud of the work that was done on that and the creativity that went into it. And so I mean, I think there's lots of little things. I've got other failed videos too that I thought like this is going to be really great, and it didn't work, but it was, I thought it really stretched me as a creator, and really proud of this. I mean, I'm gushing about all the videos. It's all the videos, Andy. There's no one video.
This is why I'm making you got to pick a favorite.
Gosh, so I think the Forge is probably my favorite stuff. I like what I'm doing now, but I'll also say I feel very lucky and blessed to have been part of the very early days of tutorial videos for Techsmith, because I feel like even in what our awesome customer education team that Jason does, Ryan H does, and Chandra does, and I mean, Ryan was kind of right there along with me in the beginning. But I think what we did, the formula for the most part, it's shifted, it's adjusted, it's updated, but I think it's still there. And we were just the team that was working on that, and we really solidified, I think, a lot of good principles that are still in practice today. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt's always breaking new ground, and no one outside here knows it unless you do. If you've been a viewer of Matt's for a long time, you may know this, but like Matt has been doing the Visual Lounge in different iterations with the Forge and with so much more. You guys did a 24-hour live stream before live streaming was the thing that people actually attended. So I mean, like it's so cool that Matt's always ahead, but it's kind of like what is it, the soothsayer in, I think it was Julius Caesar, who has the ability to tell the future, but unfortunately no one actually ever believes that person. So they just are cursed to know what's coming, but not be able to convince anyone that, hey, live streaming is actually a big deal. Pay attention.
Well, thank you for that, but we all have our misses. So a couple of things. There's one question: do you do 360 video?
I do, yeah, personally. So I love doing 360 video. Actually, the one wheel question kind of pertains to that. I used to take, let's see if I can get it without moving everything off my computer here, but I've got mine just out of reach right now. I use a Insta360 1X camera, and it's got, the bulbous lens on both sides. And so the fun thing about those when you use them is you can just walk around with your 360 camera, held it out in front of you, and you don't have to turn the angle or anything, because in post-production you can re-edit the angle, and you can also release 360 videos, for virtual reality or for the Oculus headset or different reasons. But for me, it was just fun to go skateboarding or one-wheeling down the sidewalk and hold this camera at different angles, but focus on the skateboarding, focus on the actual like riding, and then bring in the camera into post-production and reorient the angle later. And so that was always fun. And I think that's a super fun feature about 360 cameras. I don't typically release them as 360 videos. I just find not that many people find them. And so it's usually more fun in the edit process for me.
Yeah, we should clarify, not available in Camtasia 360
Nope.
video. You're going to have to go find something else to
for the one I'm using, it comes with an app on your phone. And so it's you don't even use an editor most of the time. You just use their, standalone app. And it's not great. It's got sticking points, but it's not currently the technology of today. It's still a little bit the technology of the future until they really work out all the bugs.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for all the great tips about isn't it funny how we tied in the one wheel? So we're going to stop reinventing the wheel.
Oh man, I didn't even catch that until now.
Oh, I was so happy when I thought of that idea. But thank you for sharing all these great tips and ideas. Guys, if you want to find Andy, where should they go?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm on the YouTube channel for Techsmith, but individually you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Andy Owen. I think my username is something like Owen Films. But yep, LinkedIn is my favorite place to meet people and connect.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you very much to Andy Owen for being with us and all the great information, ideas. Hopefully you're walking away from this thinking about how you can templatize, how you can create content in faster ways by having things ready to go and ready to just put in there, so you're not having to make all those decisions along the way. You can preload it and then work against those constraints, still be creative and create interesting video for yourself as well as for your audience. So next week, we got Christy Codovan, or some of you might know him as Graphiicious. I'm going to practice that this week, Christy. Anyways, it's going to be another great show. Of course, if you got feedback, thoughts, comments about the length of the show, the intro, the length of the speed round questions, and or the intro, send it to thevisuallounge@techsmith.com, or don't forget to comment below or hit like, subscribe, do all that stuff, ring the bell, smash the like button, whatever it is that you prefer to do, because that helps us know that we're making great content. And as we always like to end the show talking about templates, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, take a little time this week. Go out and make another better video, level up just a little bit. And we'll see you guys all next week.